Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Check this out. This is some Bruce Wayne level stuff right here. It keeps the zombies out. Isn't that cool? Remote control shutters. You can never be too safe. And sometimes bars on the windows draw too much attention. That's why it's good to put your shutters inside. That way you can't really tell what it is. Is it a blind? Is it a shutter? Who knows? So today I'm donning this bulletproof shirt. Okay, this is level 3A body armor. We're going to be doing a video on body armor this coming week, and we're going to show you guys some different discreet gray man type options, because that's what it's all about. It's all about gray man. You can't be sporting a plate carrier yet. I mean, we're probably going to get to that Mad Max point at some point, but right now I think it's better to keep it on the low, keep it a little bit discreet. We got a few things to talk about today. JP Morgan sees gas prices rising to $6.20 average per gallon by August. Now currently I believe the price is around $5 or something like that. So imagine an additional 20%. Actually, I think it's around $4.50. But that's average per gallon. So imagine the retail prices increasing another between 25 to 30%, and the amount of chaos that is going to create. And this is why I'm sporting the bulletproof or the bullet resistant vest. Okay, the level 3A t-shirt, I should say, not a vest. It has Kevlar plates that insert into the shirt. We're going to talk more about it later. But the reason for this, okay, the JP Morgan's commodity strategist Natasha Kavina warns that U.S. retail prices could surge another 37% by August. And she explains that typically refiners produce gasoline ahead of the summer road trip season, building up inventories. Well, I personally don't know if everybody's going to be able to afford a road trip, so maybe there won't be this huge spike in gas prices, but we'll see. But this year, since mid-April, U.S. gasoline inventories have fallen counter-seasonally and today sit at the lowest level since 2019, thank diesel production. Gasoline balances on the East Coast have been even tighter, meaning that typically around this time, there's a surplus. Right now, we're actually in a deficit, okay? Not good. Now, the Bank of England chief Andrew Bailey issues an apocalyptic warning about food prices and admits he is helpless to do anything about inflation, but he urges Britons not to ask for pay raises. Now, this is before winter. Once winter sets in and people realize the price of natural gas has gone through the roof, all hell's going to break loose. And like I've said on this channel before, the only way to keep warm when there's no heat in the house is to go outside, keep your core temperature up, and riot in the streets. When people got nothing left to lose, they lose it, as Gerald Celente would say. He also warned that a very real income shock is coming this year as prices spiral at the fastest rate in 30 years and make millions of people poorer in real terms, and that surging inflation would hit household spending, causing unemployment to rise, aka recession, quite possibly depression. Now, what are our leaders doing in order to deal with this situation? Well, they're knocking on the door of old friends, their old drug cartel smuggling friends. U.S. to ease a few economic sanctions on Venezuela. You know, Venezuela, that country that happens to be sitting on the largest amount of oil in the world. They made this discovery of oil, a few years back, and apparently they have the largest oil deposits in the world. Could you imagine, Hugo Chavez and Joe Biden at the table, making deals? It's weird, isn't it? It's funny how that all worked out. How we now have to go to these countries who we otherwise wouldn't have done any business with, but we've put ourselves in this pickle with this whole Russia debacle. And I'm sure somebody must have foreseen the effect that this was going to have on the price of oil. The United States government is moving to ease a few economic sanctions on Venezuela in a gesture meant to encourage resumed negotiations between the U.S.-backed opposition and the government, President Nicolas Maduro. Well, we got to get that oil from somewhere before the people start to riot in the streets. And that's next. That's coming. You see, if they can't keep people divided over these issues like abortion or racial inequality or whatever the case might be, people are going to start to look at their pocketbooks and they're going to start to riot for the reasons they used to riot for, socioeconomic purposes. And that's the last thing they want. They don't want another "we are the 99% ordeal ensuing, especially in the modern today, because that would get very violent. Now, the battle in Mariupol has pretty much ended. And guess what they're calling it? Ukraine has declared that the combat mission is over. Get that? The combat mission is over. So when you're defeated and you surrender, we've declared the combat mission over. Could you imagine, Japan, 1945, instead of surrendering, they just said, okay, we're done. Our combat mission is over. Okay, we're not going to say you win. We're not going to say we surrender or anything like that. Just the combat mission is over. This is a testament to the lies of this current government in Ukraine right now in terms of its desire to, on the one hand, balance public opinion with troop morale and, also obviously keep the troops fighting. And there's something to be said for that. But at what cost? How many lives have been lost over this, whatever the purpose of this was, okay? And now they're saying combat mission over, which is essentially telling you that they're never going to tell you the truth right into the end of this thing. And we said it all along. Even if the Russians take over the entire country, it'll never read like that in the headlines. It'll be something like the Ukraine has declared that mission accomplished. Concluded their mission at defending the country. That's it. End quote. So it's just unbelievable that this is happening, and it appears that for the most part the place has been cleaned out. Now I'm sure there's still some holdouts. There's still mixed reports coming out about potential NATO officers, retired officers, mercenaries who may have been holed up there. And of course, those are going to be some pretty significant bargaining pieces for the Russians. Now, what this is going to, the implications this is likely going to have is that now Russia is going to be able to free up whatever forces were in Mariupol, which were likely, I think it was their Chechen forces. So you get their Chechens and the Wagner group, which seem to be doing like a lot of the real work, which seem to be making the most significant advances in this whole thing. And right now, the same thing is happening in the Donbass, where they're starting to really make headway in many different areas. And I think it's only a matter of time before the blitzkrieg happens and the Ukrainian army is just overwhelmed. I mean, a lot of the soldiers which are being captured, they look very thin, they look very gaunt. They've been fighting their ass off for, this guy in Kiev for the longest time, being told that they're winning and that they're, all this stuff is happening. And, these guys have fought a long, hard fight. And but when they finally get captured, they don't look very healthy at all. They look like resources have been running extremely thin, that food, water, all these basic necessities have been drastically impeded by Russians cutting the supply lines. So it's just unfortunate that we can't, this day and age, that we have to struggle so much to get an accurate assessment of what is actually going on the ground. Now, Russia has withdrawn from the Baltic Council, and has expelled Finnish diplomats. Now, supposedly, I got it right that time, Putin came out yesterday and said, Finland, you want to be a part of NATO? No big deal. Then, of course, today and, of course, yesterday, moving a 7 Iskander nuclear-capable missile defense systems, missile offense systems to the Finnish border, and today expelling Finnish diplomats, withdrawing from the Baltic Council. I think that's a fairly significant move. Okay, there's a bit of Alinsky stuff going on there in the sense that he's saying one thing and he's doing another. Russia has briefed members of the Baltic Sea Council on its withdrawal from the organization. The country's foreign minister has said, as it has clarified, the situation in the council is deteriorating, and such a decision was taken in Moscow in response to hostile actions. The Russian Foreign Ministry also said that Western countries have monopolized the Council for their own opportunistic purposes and are planning their work to the detriment of Russian interests. This is just one more rift between Russia and the rest of the world, and this massive decoupling which is going to unfold this summer as the war escalates. Expulsion of 2 employees from the Finnish embassy. Moscow said on Tuesday that 2 staff members of the Finnish embassy in Russia would have to leave the country in response to a similar move by Helsinki. So perhaps this was more of a tit-for-tat type scenario. I don't know much about this next story, but apparently for the first time, Russia activated S-300s and fired anti-aircraft guns at Israeli fighters in Syria. So remember that whole talk with Lavrov, saying what he said about WW2 and the guy in Germany there who led the army who tried to conquer the world, and how he was, let's just say he had, this is Lavrov's words, okay, that he had some historical roots which extended back into the land of the Semites. Well, and of course Putin apparently phoned up the Israeli prime minister later and apologized for that remark from Lavrov, supposedly. But now, apparently, they are shooting down Israeli fighters in Syria. So perhaps there's a bit of a rift growing there as well. Medvedev says, Russia's former President Medvedev has said that Russia won't allow World War III to break out, but it's ready to repel any aggression. This is just more rhetoric, really. This is really meaningless speech at this point. Russia's nuclear shield consists of an arsenal of state-of-the-art and reliable weapons that cools the ambitions of those who are ready to unleash World War III, the deputy chairman of the Russian Security Council underscored. Russia won't allow World War III to break out, but it is able to give an immediate and super powerful, these are the words they used, translated anyways, super powerful response in the event it comes under attack, Deputy Chairman of the Russian Security Council Dmitry Medvedev said on Telegram on Tuesday, following a trip to a nuclear center in Sarov. He said the country's nuclear shield consists of an arsenal of state-of-the-art, reliable weapons that cools the ambitions of those who are ready to unleash World War III. Another interesting development, apparently Zelensky has replaced the head of his territorial defense forces. This is significant, right? Because, of course, we're winning and NATO is sending all these weapons. And what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, the Russians are running out of weapons. The Ukraine's going to win by the end of the year or in the next few months or something like that. And the tragedy of all this is that they're selling this to the guys on the ground doing the work. I mean, if it was the politicians fighting, it would be fine. But it's these young guys who haven't seen the better part of their lives unfold, who are now going to lose their lives because they're being possibly sold a false sense of hope. I want to say possibly because we're going to leave it open-ended, but it doesn't look good, okay? Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky replaced the head of the territorial defense forces almost 3 months after the start of the war with Russia without explaining why. So we don't know why. The defense ministry said today that Zelensky had appointed Lieutenant General Ihor Tensuria to succeed Yuri Haluskin as commander of the forces assisting the Ukrainian army in defending the country after the 24th invasion of Russia. The ministry said Tensuria was an experienced officer who had previously served as chief of the Ukraine's ground forces. The explosive enlargement of the structure, especially in situations of intense battle, is a huge experiment experience with mistakes and achievements, their successes and unfortunately losses. And for these reasons, they decided to change it up a little bit. They're putting in a different picture because apparently things aren't going too well. May 24th is a somewhat significant day. It's the day where the U.S. may be set to block U.S.-Russian debt payments. So that may be a significant day for the markets, be it the U.S. dollar or the ruble. Either way, you know, this game of 4D chess is likely going to continue for some period of time. Stay tuned this week, guys. We're going to be talking all about body armor, because if you have over a couple thousand rounds of ammunition, even if you only have 1,000 rounds of ammunition, for some people that's a lot. Okay, if you even have a few hundred rounds of ammunition, if you ever engaged in a gunfight with that post SHTF in self-defense only or for hunting purposes, need to say that legal disclaimer, then there's a good chance that, you know, there's going to be a return fire and that you're going to have some way to protect yourself. So we're going to be talking about all the different levels of body armor, concealed stuff like this, shirts, vests, backpack inserts, plate carriers, all that stuff. So stay tuned for that. And just one more time, because I love doing this. The security guy just installed this today. Always be mindful of those security guys, because when the shit hits the fan, they may be coming back. No disrespect to my security guy. We joke around anyways. But man, the things that he tells me about what people are stealing nowadays, unbelievable. People are stealing everything nowadays, and it's only going to get worse. So make sure you watch your six, stay vigilant, you know, don't get complacent, whether it's walking, you know, to your car through a parking lot at night, or just how your home is presenting itself to the rest of the street. You know, just be very vigilant. Go and watch our video on 10 different ways to defend your home. And I'll post a link to that in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe and stay tuned. Canadian Prepper out.